Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Walking the Workline, which I'll explain in a second. I introduced myself very briefly earlier, but I'm going to tell you three things that are maybe relevant for this presentation specifically. One, last year I was here and they told me, and I quote, be provocative like Dror Polak. It's really intimidating to follow him. So I'm not going to attempt to be provocative in the same way today, given we heard such a great speech from him before. Two, I fancy myself a human systems integrator for modern work. I come from technology and information security before going into cost management and change management, and then falling into workplace. So most of my interests in the things we'll talk about today are like on the divider lines between the functions that we need collaborating, as you heard on the panel this morning, to deliver a better day at work. And finally, I share slides, not just slides, handouts. I will give you all the stuff I'm about to say and more if you want to give me some feedback at the end so you don't have to take pictures if you don't want to. So for anyone who was here last year, you might remember I had this like really terrifying guy and my presentation was called "The Future of Work is Being Written, but Not by You." And that was off the back of my then like 3 years at McKinsey, being in the room with I think over half of the executive teams for companies of people who were in the room last year, with them talking about hybrid and AI and the future of the office. And somewhat embarrassingly, like real estate friends of mine were not in the room at the time. And I wanted to offer some options for how to put yourself on the front foot. And I used a model called the 3 horizons. And we spent a lot of time talking about what line are you on? And it was really wonderful in the time after my presentation that people were asking me, oh, I'm trying to get onto kind of horizon line 2. Lines, lines, lines. And that's got me thinking over the months since then about lines, but not the headlines, which I'm deeply trying to move away from. Which company is going back 3 days, 4 days? Who's got a mandate? Who's laying people off? Who's purportedly replacing jobs with AI? But the lines on the right, the ones that we are putting up between our functions, we've retrenched into like, I'm in HR, I'm in, I mean, I wish MasterCard went after it. This was an amazing example of where things actually go right. But most of us still feel very siloed. And real estate in particular could be anywhere in the organization. But those are the lines we need to break down in order to materially start moving the needle, not just on the future work, but modern work, the things that are happening today. And that inspired me to start the Workline. It's the big announcement change for me. Thank you to everybody here who reads it. I've been writing this newsletter for about 6 months now, and I set out to build cross-functional courage, to try to write at that intersection of real estate, IT, HR, and say the things that weren't being said or that I felt we weren't being honest enough about. Where we need help from each other, where are the successes, what are the profiles, what organizations like a MasterCard are doing things that feel like 2 and 3 standard deviations ahead of where everybody else is, not because they've built the nicest office or they've asked people to come back, but because a collaborative choice that they made. And what can we learn from those things? So I've been getting a lot of feedback from these newsletters, kind of hinted again at it this morning. People telling me, God, I wish we could say that like on stage, or I know that to be true, but I don't think the head of my group does, or our CFO or CHRO. So I'm here to share today 3 of the lessons, the many, that I've taken away from 6 months of doing this, which hopefully resonate enough with you to share back with your teams and, again, overall improve the experience of work for our employees. The first one is that we're really not that great at connecting experiences to outcomes. This was a wild experience to me. Another panel, Jen was there. So this was back in the spring. I went to Future of Work USA, and I went to a panel with a bunch of friends on it and moderating who are unbelievable and have unbelievable workplace programs for major companies. And they were sharing stories of things they were doing in the built environment and behaviorally. And then I asked a question through Slido or one of those tools, which you can see here. How do you align specific employee experience initiatives or target employee behaviors to your company's business objectives? And it was silent. kind of creepy. Nicole Turner, who is in Jones' team at MasterCard, saw my name in the app and saw me in the audience and said, Phil, do you want to rephrase the question? And I said out loud, no, and I think the silence is deafening. The answer to the question that I think I was looking for was something like this. Like, if we improve very specific experience or drive very specific behavior, that is going to lead to some very specific outcome, and here's why. And one of the women on the panel from a company that's here had actually, like moments before my question, shared a really great story about doing facility-related strategy and assessments in frontline locations, like operational and warehouse facilities, and how they were studying the driver's personal experience when they come in and out of the building and quick turnaround, and how important things like restrooms and break rooms and coffee quality are, because driver health matters. Driver well-being matters. In theory, the better an experience they have coming in and out, the faster they're going to turn around, maybe the better the safety record becomes, anything. And I said, you had it. It was there. You told the story, but we are not trained to draw this connection to outcomes. And that leads us to be thinking about inputs, not outputs. Fred said it this morning, utilization is still the name of the game for most of us, and it's hard. But if we want to be moving ourselves up the value chain, you've got to hold yourself accountable for trying to show the impact that corporate real estate has on business outcomes. An amazing one is something like time to productivity. And I hold that up as an aspirational goal specifically because to do it would require real estate, IT, and HR to be friends around a topic that in a way that we're not usually. Maybe a good secondary example would be retention, which Erica mentioned. How many of you here have ever, either before or after a project, said, we did this office project, or this office is so great to help attract and retain top talent? Yeah, lots. How many of those people from where you're sitting right now could look up the sort of offer acceptance or the attrition rate for the office that you built that was supposed to help with talent attraction and retention? No. I mentioned that to a room of HR leaders about a week ago. I said, do you know that your real estate colleagues can't prove any of these outcomes that they're trying because you largely gatekeep the information from them? Maybe the last example here, the very first article I wrote for the Workline was about a metric pioneered by Atlassian. They're here too. You should talk to them about it. Called cost per visit. I'll never forget Annie Dean, who's now at CBRE, but then was at Atlassian, said, this metric of showing the fully loaded cost for a building divided by the number of times that any humans went there over a quarter, quote, gave leaders access to their common sense in a way that she had never, I mean, that's amazing. But that one can be calculated just by you, right? She said, even though her spreadsheets would have cost per square foot and utilization rate and everything else, leading with cost per visit centered the human in a way that no other metric had before and got her executives to the table on the value of real estate in a way they hadn't before. And I'll give you like the greatest tool that you can probably implement in order to do this is what I call a North Star vision. Set up exactly this way. This is the same kind of framework that McKinsey gives to new CEOs. They're saying, if you want to drive change, do this. This is a completely hypothetical, fake North Star for that concept of making drivers feel more valued or refreshed. You see some kind of level 1 vision that's like a 2 to 3 year project, multiple level 2 themes, something you can work on for a year or two, which you can see are deliberately mutually exclusive. They're different kinds of approaches to the same problem. A number of work streams, which again are deliberately different and cross-functional. If you have IT responsible for some things across themes and real estate and HR with metrics to track your progress before you start, this is an incredible way of getting employees on board for the change you're trying to see. Tell them at the outset, why are we doing it? Who's involved? What are we trying to move? Not just saying like, we're gonna make a nice new office or we're gonna improve desk booking as much as that is important. So that's for aligning with leaders, in particular your internal partners, on a higher order change that the business will buy into. Number 2, We don't have enough technologists in real estate. Recently ran a webinar with people, someone from HR, IT, and real estate specifically, talking about the ideal dream, you can see in the illustration, of having one dashboard, one North Star vision for a better work experience in all of the executive rooms, no matter who brings it there. And a guy from from real estate, who is a technologist, said the hard part out loud. We get the short end of the stick on technologists, and he is one. I have to beg, borrow, and steal for resources to do anything in a way that his HR and IT counterparts don't. But when we have technologists, it can be really amazing. I interviewed one from McKesson, also from Lynn's team, who said this great thing, that his team was trying to patch together data for one of their external partnerships, and initial estimates were going to be like weeks and weeks and weeks of one person's time dedicated, and he did it basically in the morning. Most of us don't have this, not real estate, but it's what we need. And that interview prompted me to ask a question in an event I ran recently, which I could do a whole talk on. Some people here did this with me. I ran what's called the Listening Lab. Had 50 heads of real estate and workplace experience together in an AI-powered set of conversations one-on-one with each other that landed or resulted in about 400,000 words of conversation mashed together with a tool called Natter. And one of the questions that I asked was, how does your team leverage AI today to collaborate, deliver projects and services, and work with partners, internally or externally? So all 50 people on the call went and talked to each other for 10 minutes. And when I looked at the data after the fact, it was really interesting from an AI and technical perspective. First, all the data here is aspirational. All the high-level themes from the conversations were, these are things we want to do. Second, the far and away majority conversation was about the intelligent facility. I want the building to be smarter. And that's admirable. We all want it for energy efficiency, greenhouse gas, right? I want to see the HVAC system adjusting itself in real time. But my question was about, how are you using AI to collaborate with each other, deliver your projects and services, and then engage with partners? And everybody jumped to the building. The second category was one of the ones I was kind of fishing for. Are you doing what MasterCard's doing of intelligently scheduling and moving people around with AI? And it came up in about half the conversations, but almost always aspirationally. We're not there yet. And then the last one, how are we working with partners, which could be internal or external, was this we're not using it much, maybe for rendering. If the future of work is going to require a very different, what I think of as operating system. Dror again this morning said, work is nonlinear, it's unpredictable. If we're gonna be responsive to our day-to-day working patterns and retail-oriented choices for work, it's gonna mean connecting all these kinds of data sources that are owned and guarded heavily by different teams today. And the only way to get over that hump and make any sense of it will be AI. And I don't want real estate to lose out to those other internal partners because we don't have the intellectual and technical horsepower to take the front foot and say, we know the spaces that people like. We are directing them to the ones that make sense, whether it's a desk, a room, or the co-working environment across the street. This is why the power of technologists is so important, and I asked about the talent pipeline this morning for that reason. Lesson 3. We are no longer, not experimenting enough with how work feels. Has anybody heard of the phrase vibe coding before? Yeah. Anybody of those people, have you just made an app from a prompt with yourself? Dror mentioned it this morning. Yeah, I see a couple of nods. How cool is that? I can just do what I want, make a whole application for me or my kids from a prompt. And the person who coined that term had a fabulous tweet about it, which I then morphed for my purposes to coin the phrase vibe officing, where you just fully give into mobility, right? I book apps or book desks with apps I've never even used before. Work materializes around me. We have to get there. And it triggered a little bit of an avalanche of feedback to me, in particular from the architecture community, who said, yeah, we've been talking about vibes for a long time. This place has great vibes. Sure. Well-designed spaces can have great vibes. And we can also plan them to be vibrant. There's something on our tables this morning talking specifically about that, and CBRE even put out a report a year or so ago talking about how many people need to be in a room in order for it to feel vibrant. But that's still not the same as vibe, as like the adverb, vibe officing. We have to enable movement, and this is like just the MasterCard case. In order to get to the 84% of teams being together, you have to have people who are okay moving. So I worry with a particular back to office mandates where people are getting assigned desks again, that is limiting their freedom where an algorithm could help them move, take the friction away from switching rooms, building buildings that are community oriented to make us feel like we do when we go to a restaurant or a hotel. And instead of thinking about what percentage of the desks were used, what is the experienced density in that space, the buzz? What did we do to get it to be where we want it to be? And ultimately, this only works if you give employees choice. This is about the test and learn mentality that we do this in our daily lives all the time. We don't go back to bad restaurants twice, but we're building linear, rigid, immovable buildings for a nonlinear, unpredictable future of work, as George said. Inspired by a conversation with my ServiceNow friends here tonight, I put this quote up from Jackie Canny. So Jackie is the Chief People and AI Enablement Officer for ServiceNow. She recently hosted a top CHRO event in New York City, posted about it online, came with all 50-page playbook on the future of CHROs. But this was in her LinkedIn post, and I loved it. It goes, as AI changes business demands, HR leaders are the connectors across the enterprise. This requires us to embrace a try and learn culture rather than saying, don't break that. And the reason that that jumped out at me is that this chart on the right came from that Natter listening lab that I mentioned earlier. 2 years ago, while I was at McKinsey, I surveyed a different group of 50 corporate real estate leaders by name, and I asked them 12 questions about delivering a best-in-class workplace experience. And two of the lowest performing capabilities then, 2 years ago, were we have a strategic North Star vision for workplace experience, and we have processes in place to test and learn. And if you've been staring at this slide long enough, you'll get to, or you will have figured out the punchline. Those were two of the worst performing capabilities 2 years ago from progressive organizations, and they both dropped. In particular, the test and measure one. It's the only one that went net negative for agreement, meaning more people disagreed with that statement in my recent listening lab with some people who are in this room in it than agreed. So while CHROs are out there going, we're going to test and measure our way into an AI-powered future of work, we are struggling. We are saying we are being told to spend less, or I can't test. I had a conversation before coming up here with oh, I wish I could send surveys when people leave the building, but I can't. They won't let me. We really have to rethinking how we iterate and test and learn, because otherwise we cannot handle a nonlinear future of work. So my final minute, bonus lesson. I love this conference. I hope I get to come back next year. But, yeah, 45 seconds. But a lot of what I learned was in last year doing something I'd never done before, which was going to an HR conference. So I strongly recommend to you, if you want to know how the other side thinks, go to their conference in addition to yours, or grab one of your HR friends and drag them here. So the final takeaway, 3 things you can do when you walk out, well, 5. Make sure you're aligning for outcomes first before you start the project. Make sure you're investing in translators and technologists who can help you get to that modern operating system for work. And you got to treat the workplace like a product, which means it's not always going to work, and you have to be testing and measuring and learning and failing fast to get to a product that delivers better outcomes beyond the floor plan. It's the PS. Make sure you get out of your ecosystem, or sorry, your echo chamber. And I promise that you could have these slides if you wanted them. So if you fill this out, give me your name. If you're already a subscriber, thank you. If you're not, this will subscribe you, and I will send you the slides, the handout, and everything else. And with that, let's go eat.